Sonic Universe Issue 70 Reboot. We start out with Knuckles and Shadow falling into a river in Marble Garden. Well, it is new that it has a river. I don't remember having a river before. Why doesn't Shadow just teleport to safety? He pulls Knuckles to land, and then they waste panels arguing. Shadow says that he could find a new purpose in life, and finally they get interrupted by a rumble. That should have happened much earlier. Knuckles and Shadow blame each other for the island falling, and Omega is told to set Rouge's shoulder, with Relic fainting. Rouge says that Omega is conserving power since Eclipse ripped out his Chaos Drive, and apparently he has a secondary energy source. Wait, that was supposed to be a Chaos Drive? That didn't look like it. It should have looked exactly like the SA2 one if they're going to use the same idea. Rouge yells at Shadow and Knuckles over the phone, saying they should have just talked instead of fighting like children. First of all, there's no way any amount of talking could have convinced Knuckles to change his mind, and she should know that. She should have instead called out Shadow on not warping the Emerald and his friends to safety. She was in favor of getting the Emerald from the beginning of the arc, and now she's against it and thinks Shadow was stupid for trying to do what she wanted? And second, why is the writer comfortable with writing them to be so stupid if he's aware that he's writing them as children? And again, this is the jewel thief who fought Knuckles, and I'm expected to take her completely seriously as the moral high ground. It should be Relic saying this. Rouge warns Shadow that Eclipse is heading for Rouge's shuttle. Knuckles says that he knows every shortcut on the island, and they can cut him off. And it's not like the reboot has him unable to teleport, which would have solved a lot of potential plot holes. Shadow instead says he needs a way to slow him down. Slow? Shadow has Sonic speed! This literally is the worst handling of Shadow's character possible. Not only does the writer forget he has Chaos Control in all of the moments that matter, but he almost always forgets he has Sonic speed. He might as well be Sonic, because all he's remembered he can do most of the time is use the spin dash. Just run to the shuttle instantly! Relic tells Knuckles that because he warned her to beware of the traps on the island that are there for no reason still, she asked if they could use the traps against Eclipse. Yeah, use ideas that Flynn didn't come up with to defeat the bad guy. And Knuckles thinks the traps are supposed to be a secret. That hammer was pretty out in the open. He says there's some command hubs on the island hidden, and says to tell them to cross the bridge to the mainland. And there's a cave heading right into the mountain. This is so convoluted and wasting our time. This arc didn't need to be 4 issues long. Did any of the universe arcs in the reboot need to be 4 issues long? Relic says that this place looks like it predates even the Echidna dynasty. Dynasty? And it's still advanced technology, Pender's style. Rouge uses the computer to immediately access convenient spy camera footage on Angel Island that shows them Eclipse. That's the 5th Pender's concept Flynn used. 6th if you include the fact that Relic is a female companion for Knuckles like Julie Sue, who multiple people tease Knuckles with, more importantly. That really makes it official. But yeah, this is a Pender's thing. Because, you know, spy camera footage on Angel Island. And there's not even an explanation for it this time. Rouge says that Eclipse is in Sandopolis Zone. But the heroes didn't go through that place in the story arc. We didn't see them go through there on their way to the Master Emerald. And they must have picked the shortest route to it. I guess we had skipped past Sandopolis in that montage without music. Knuckles says to have them slow him down. Rouge and Relic? I guess the idea is that they're able to remotely control the traps in Sandopolis to try to slow Eclipse down. Can't he just Chaos Control past all the traps? Why wouldn't he just freeze time? Why didn't he freeze time earlier and keep doing that over and over again to effortlessly escape the island? What an idiot! It's his fault the heroes even have a chance. I kinda understand why Shadow's slowing down to bring Knuckles with him, because after Eclipse bested him, he needs backup. But still, why doesn't he pick up Knuckles and carry him and run at the speed of sound to get where he wants in seconds? Relic mentions troll people that also had ancient computers, being the padding person she is. What's especially interesting about the troll idea is that they're not animal people. And Eclipse breaks some sand wall in front of him. He responds to the Dark Arms' complaints that the emerald is heavy and is hot, and he tells them to move it because they need this thing. even though they don't have to wage war against the planet. Is this foreshadowing to them turning on him? At least this will make it easier on them when he inevitably gets murdered by Shadow, because they won't miss him as much. He prepares to destroy the golem with a not-wisp power instead of simply warping away, or apart. Seriously, why would he ever think he needed their help? It's sweet that Shadow and Knuckles smile at each other. Eclipse almost falls into the trapdoor as I'm stunned and bored at the collapse of creativity. We've all seen Sonic 3. A bunch of panels are blatantly wasted with nothing happening in them. Finally gets to launch base zone. And at least I can be proud of him for helping carry the Master Emerald with them. He says that once they'll have taken this thing's power, they'll sink the island. What took him so long to say this? He calls them little ones, making them carry it again, and says they're home free. Could Chaos Control make them not have to carry it? He avoids a Chaos Spear, because Shadow miraculously missed for no other reason than to keep padding out the story. Eclipse didn't know it was coming, and I would assume that a Chaos Spear would move as fast as light. Because that's what it is, isn't it? Lightning? He calls them little ones again, and says to get to the shuttle while he'll teleport their prize the rest of the way. Do it while saying this then! We could have him get hit by the Chaos Spear, and then be told that he had rings. He's at least able to teleport, never mind. Knuckles and Shadow fight him and interrupt him. Maybe if he had teleported away instead of wasting time telling the Dark Arms what he was going to do next, he would have had a chance. Eclipsed an idiot again by talking, so of course he gets hit by Knuckles. Who does this? Who just stands there talking and doing nothing when surrounded in a fight? I have a hard time imagining anyone could be this stupid, and yet comics do it all the time. He calls Knuckles a savage and inexplicably a simpleton when he has no reason to think of him that way. And Knuckles has been surprisingly smart in this reboot, actually. And he gets wing power, only to get a spin dash attack from Shadow. Knuckles thinks he's too worn out, and Shadow must be hurting too after all the fighting, as Eclipse misses his laser twice. Knuckles wastes my time thinking redundantly, shockingly with multiple panels. The Not-Wisps give up in exhaustion, and Shadow says Eclipse is finished when he can barely stand. Then Eclipse stands there like a moron doing nothing, as Knuckles blathers on and on saying the SA1 chant to the Master Emerald, saying he has to send it away and will find it again, unify it again. This is so forced and arbitrary. First of all, Eclipse would have stopped him a long time ago. We could have at least seen him make an effort by warping Knuckles away, and then Shadow would just warp him back here. And Knuckles doesn't even explain that the reason he's going to separate it into pieces is that, there is no reason. It's obviously better that one person might steal it all at once than a whole bunch of thieves stealing shards of the emerald. It'd obviously be much faster for Knuckles to get the emerald back if he kept it whole. Common sense would dictate that he teleport it all away to, well, anywhere on the island, not make it needlessly hard on himself, and teleport all to some place he knows it'll be safe. My biggest problem with this is how repetitive this idea is. It's obvious that Flynn has no ideas of its own sometimes. Even Penders didn't do this because he had enough creativity to write any story for Knuckles but this. He's just stealing the emerald hunting idea from the adventure games, which has already been done to death. Even Sonic 06 knew to not do this again. That's why Knuckles didn't hunt for anything. There's no reason at all to repeat this plot point, both from a meta sense and in universe. In a meta sense, even if he's treasure hunting in places he's never treasure hunted in before, which would be common sense to write because it's a bit more creative if you're going to do a treasure hunting idea, it would still make a boring story where Knuckles would just be wandering around looking for stuff and doing basically nothing. And as we learned from last arc, having people to talk to wouldn't help. It's still a bit of a boring, uneventful story if all they're doing is going from one place to another. Logically, why does Knuckles have to talk to the Emerald at all? That'd take time in an emergency, so no one would make that a mandatory part of the spell. He says sorry like it's a person, and he treats it like that from loneliness. He shatters it and teleports it away, as I wonder how Eclipse could be so stupid as to not prevent this from happening and all the talking he sat through. And all he did to shatter it was simply punch it, like in SA2. In SA2, when he did this, he didn't have to say the SA1 chant. And for good reason, because Eggman would have obviously taken it with his crane and all the time he was talking. Flynn can't even avoid continuity errors when he's writing it as canon to the games. Shadow then asked if that was Chaos Control. Well, didn't Knuckles use Chaos Control in Archie? I mean, he did create a portal for himself, multiple times. Guiding Stargem or not, we saw him create a portal for himself in the Knuckles comic, which was released years before Chaos Control was a concept in SA2. So, this is the 7th Pender's concept. Oh, he doesn't warp himself away, so he can still punch Eclipse, as I wonder why Eclipse was stupid enough to ask why he did that. My point is, he still showed the ability to teleport, even if he didn't teleport himself. By definition, the way he did it must have been by creating a portal, and the portal would have sucked something in before vanishing. And here he's even more powerful because he also shattered the emerald like an idiot. Remember when Scourge warped away by putting his hand on the Master Emerald, and he said Chaos Control? Well, he could have easily warped the emerald away with him, but he didn't. Either way, that would have counted as Chaos Control, wouldn't have? So, this is Chaos Control. So why doesn't he just warp to the shuttle at that point? And why doesn't he use Chaos Control all the time? Why would he only have the ability to teleport the Master Emerald? Like, if he's able to do this because he's connected with the Master Emerald, and so he has the power of the Master Emerald, you think he'd be able to use that on a lot more things because he has Chaos Energy, and everyone's Chaos Energy is the same, so he'd have the same power as Shadow. How could he... Knuckles saying that he swore he'd never do that again just makes it even more forced that he did it. Eclipse worries that they'll kill them both, and uses the sonic cannon with the one that he thought didn't do much. This conveniently knocks Shadow and Knuckles out. Unfortunately, there's a silence as Eclipse looks at him stunned, as if to imply he's surprised he was useful and grateful. And then he looks at the Dark Arms. Good writing would have him realize that this fighting wasn't worth getting them in this condition, and he goes into the shuttle. I'm really surprised that he was allowed to survive the story arc. After all the foreshadowing build-up, he doesn't get killed off by Shadow. So he leaves in the shuttle, and we cut to the next day. So why didn't Shadow teleport to the shuttle Eclipse was in? He knows what it looks like from the inside. Oh, I forgot. He has a maximum teleport range now, and he somehow doesn't have a Chaos Emerald. He could still use the Master Emerald. There is no limit to how much teleportation can break a story. Then we cut to Snively telling gun agents that he wants as much of that alien vessel as possible, so he's salvaging Eclipse's spaceship. Well, it is a lot less expensive to do that than to build a spaceship of your own. And it's not suspicious. If Eclipse was using logic, he would have long since used Chaos Control to teleport the food in that spaceship to his shuttle to ensure a food supply for the Dark Arms. Not to mention warp the space shuttle away so no one will be able to use it. And not to mention use Chaos Control to kill Rouge, Knuckles, and Omega. But we can't have that happen because it'd be too dark. Also, maybe he has a maximum teleport range too. But that should have been explained. Seriously, why does Snively have a beard now? It contrasts Eggman. But still, it's clearly not necessary. He tells Team Dark that there's a shuttle waiting to take them back to the carrier. Why didn't Shadow just use Master Emerald to teleport home with his friends long before this? Snively tells Knuckles that Gunn would like to thank him for most of his cooperation. And Knuckles threatens Snively because he's not over him working for Eggman. And Snively's too afraid to tell him that he hates Eggman just as much as he does now. And so obviously he regrets working for Eggman. Since you could only see Snively's close-up head on that red-tinted screen, I can't blame Knuckles for not recognizing Snively on it. He didn't see his height or body. And apparently in the Reboot's idea of the Sonic 3 arc, Snively helped Eggman steal the Master Emerald. That was pointless. Knuckles satisfyingly scares Snively away, making him call him Sir. And Rouge shrugs off the fact that she has questionable company. And the writer shows a complete lack of self-awareness by having Rouge tell Knuckles he made a smart move with the Emerald, even though it's really obvious that he didn't need to shatter it. And it's also obvious that a jewel thief who loves Master Emerald wouldn't want it to be shattered. So she wouldn't think it's a smart idea, and you'd think they would team up. They both want the Emerald. He'd get it found twice as fast. He at least thanks Rouge for uncharacteristically complimenting him, and he just wants Rouge to tell Shadow he's a jerk. Whatever. Why does Knuckles inexplicably say to go home if she wants? What makes him think that she'd want that, especially since she was clearly sad earlier about the idea of him telling her to pack up her bags and leave? I thought he knew her. This is just another excuse for Relic to paddle the story. That seems to be her only purpose in life, to provide a cheap source of padding. She says that she promised she would help Knuckles look after this place. I'd rather have to call. This doesn't have any kind of effect like it wants, because she's just a brand new character who doesn't need to exist. So we have no reason to be emotionally attached to her. He thanks her, when he should know that she has no chance of being helpful looking after this place. She doesn't have any weapons. Knuckles shattering the emerald would be made up for a bit if we never saw him actually gathering the pieces, and it was put back together the next time we saw it. But I know that's not going to happen. Flynn just did this to have a very cheap excuse for another story that is even actually his. I wonder if he contacted the writer of SC1 and got his permission to reuse his plot. I guess it just assumed that he has permission. Because of course he'd have permission to use all the game ideas. Knuckles says he'll grab Chip in the Chaos Emerald he got from the Chaotix that Shadow could have really used, and track Sonic down first. So, where was Chip? He's the guardian of the Master Emerald. Why isn't he prioritizing looking for the Master Emerald first? This issue was by Ian Flynn. Well, I can at least compliment it on subverting my expectations. Eclipse caring about the Dark Arms so much made it too sympathetic for me to want him dead anymore. So I'm actually glad he survived and took the shuttle. But there's no excuse for Knuckles shattering the Master Emerald. The same bullshit was in SA2. It's not like he had to shatter it. He just had to teleport it away. He just made things needlessly hard on himself. And also there could be a redundant waste of a story later. Knuckles really wasn't thinking. But it's so confusing. Eclipse left after knocking out Knuckles and Shadow, when he could have easily snapped their necks when they were sleeping. If this writer had self-awareness and logic about his writing, he'd have realized this question, and it'd be answered by Eclipse gave up on his revenge goal when he saw how exhausted it made his kids and how much it put them at risk. And so he changed his mind about wanting to kill them. If he had this thought bubble, the ending would have been a whole lot better. He might have known that if he killed Shadow and Knuckles, it might cause other people to go after him. Though either way, he'll be gone after for stealing a gun shuttle. I hope he lands in a safe hidden place. Maybe he could have known that killing Shadow and Knuckles wouldn't get his father and species back. Maybe the Sonic Cannon Wisp was too exhausted to destroy them for Eclipse. I assumed that the story would end with the heroes befriending the Not Wisp after Eclipse dies and they turned on him. And then they'd hang out with the Wisp on Mobius and help the heroes. Maybe that'll come later. But that'd be kind of boring though, because if they're gonna be helping the heroes, then functionally they're no different than normal Wisps. As usual, the story is riddled with idiot balls, making me frustrated with the main characters.